Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Kelsey Baez. I am the WellCats Nutritionist here on campus. A lot of what I do is these pan classes, which you are currently attending, where I will modify and healthify recipes. I also do one-on-one counseling, and I do educational seminars, which there's one coming up, by the way, next Tuesday, I believe it is, at 12:30. I will be hosting a seminar on healthy landscapes and how our environment impacts us and our health. But with that being said, I want to just go ahead and jump right into the recipe. We are making jambalaya today, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. In true graduate student fashion, I have 800 tabs open, but let's see here. You should be able to see that. So the jambalaya, it's pretty well distributed out. We're gonna make, it's about 4 servings, so about half a cup each. Of food. The calories are going to be about 356. Proteins, about a full serving of protein, about 28 grams. Fat's going to be 10 and carbohydrates 41. So those distributions are pretty good. Whenever I make jambalaya at home, I usually also serve it with a side salad just to get some extra fiber and things of that nature. Or not things of that nature. I want to get extra fiber into my diet. That's specifically why I'm doing that. Um, so the ingredients that we're going to be using today is shrimp and chicken sausage. Traditional jambalaya often has a beef sausage in there, but I swapped it out for chicken sausage just for lower fat content. We're going to be using brown rice and a red pepper, green pepper, dicing onions. I always show you guys my onion trick, so that's going to be coming up. I've already diced up the celery stalk and the garlic cloves. And we're gonna have a tomato sauce. And I have recently learned that I open up my tomato can or my cans weird. So I'm gonna show you how I open them up, and you can take that for however you want to adapt it. And then seasoning, we're keeping it pretty mild today. We're gonna do thyme and oregano. A lot of that is just for salt content, and because I'm going to be having a baby eat or a toddler eat this later, so I don't want it not to be palatable for her. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to do this. Okay, perfect. So, just showing you a little bit of the ingredients that I have here. I've already diced up the red pepper and the celery. The sausage I've also chopped up. So I sliced it very thin, and then I sliced it in half because we're only using 2 links. I really want to maximize it so that I'm getting that flavor into my rice and to the other parts of the food. But then I still want to be able to have that crunch and that taste. So because it's only 2 and not like a full packet like some people do, this is a good way to still be able to get that taste and not have the additional fat content to it. So we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna show you how I cut bell peppers because I find it effective. So most people, whenever they cut a bell pepper, they start from the stem. But if you do that, you're gonna get seeds all over the place, and you're gonna have to wash your pepper a lot. Now, there's nothing wrong with eating the seeds actually, but it's just not as palatable for me. So what I did is I started at the top, and then as I cut down, I slightly angled my knife, and then I brought it back in, and then I slightly angled it in to bring it closer to the the seed house. I don't know what the pit we'll call it. And there's that. And then these membranes right here, you can rip them out with your hand pretty fast that way. And then you can also use a knife, whatever works best for you. Now, a good rule of thumb whenever you're chopping anything, I mean, of course, chop to whatever your desired size is. But the thinner you cut something, the faster it's going to cook because you're going to be able to get more heat to it. It's just all about that surface area distribution. So I'm cutting these long ways, and if you notice, I'm cutting it not with the outside up. I'm cutting with the inside and the membranes to me. That stabilizes the pepper, and it actually helps me control it so that I can have an even thickness. It also doesn't snap the pepper whenever I'm cutting it. Why I know this, it's not like I've been formally trained in cooking or anything like that, but there's twofold. One, I have a mother-in-law that I just watch like a hawk anytime she cooks, and I've learned so much from her. And the other aspect of that is that my husband used to be in the military, and we had a lot of potlucks in the military. So you learn how to cook different things. You swap recipes with other people, cook together at some points, and it's just evolved to all these really weird cutting tricks that I have. I really enjoy adding bell peppers to my meals because they are so rich in like everything. Vitamin C for antioxidants, and it's just an overall antioxidant powerhouse. And then those vitamin C also are going to work together with our food, with our meat, so that and any non-heme iron that we may be consuming, and help our bodies be able to absorb that better. The onion. So we're going to go ahead and cut an onion, and what you're going to do is cut this side of it, not the root. Just cut the end off. I'm only going to do about half this onion. It's a really big onion. The recipe calls for 1.5 cups, I believe, which is about the size of your fist. So the size of your fist is 1 cup, so 1.5 fists. So I cut it in half through the root, and I'm removing the skin, shell, however you want to call it. And then my hand's always parallel, I believe parallel to the knife. I'm going to cut this all the way, not all the way, but close to the rim. And this is a good way to, one, dice your onion faster than having to line up everything, like how maybe you saw what was happening with that bell pepper. But it also minimizes food waste because you're able to get really close to that root. So now what I'm doing is I'm going perpendicular to the board. And again, I'm not going all the way through the onion, but I am going all the way down to the cutting board, so that I've set up the framework for how wide my onions are going to be. And now I'm going to just go this way, and I've got perfectly diced onions. Well, maybe not perfectly, but perfectly for me. How about that? Good enough for jambalaya. Yeah, so if you see what I was talking about earlier with the portioning, that's about 1, and then I see all this extra on the side. I'd say that's about an onion, about 1/2. I'm going to go ahead and just finish off this. Ooh, all right, I'm going to stop. It's getting to me. I got my eyes stinging. Let's take this bowl here, dump this all in here, and let's make our transition over. Are we done cutting? Yeah, I'll show you how I open up the can over here. Let's make our transition over to the stove. And I need to actually heat my pan up. So let me go ahead and get that started. I'm going to move some of the ingredients over here. So give me a moment to transition everything for easier cooking. Okay. All right. So the rice that I'm using today is actually an instant rice. This is going to be my first time making jambalaya with instant rice. I usually use just rice in a bag, just that's not parboiled. Excuse me. So I went ahead and used this one because I know that we're on a time crunch. It could take longer if you used not instant rice because it's not instant. But that's telling me about 10 minutes is how long it'll take. Then we have, so this is a chicken sausage that I used, that I diced up. It is just a HEB chicken sausage. It's natural, no antibiotics, but technically no, you can't sell meat with antibiotics in it. So that's really just a marketing ploy that people use to convince you to spend more money. All right, then the thyme, I just use McCormick. I use dry. A lot of times I'll use fresh too. It was just what I had on hand, so that's why it's dry. And let's show you how I open my can. All right, here we go. All right, so I think some of it's going to depend on what type of can opener you have, but for the most part, whenever someone opens their can, they take it and they match it down here like this, and then they pinch it and they go around, and then your lid goes inside of the can. So what I do is I take it and I take the blade and I put it on the outside, and then I pinch it, and now I've got it grabbed there and it's secured. So as I go and I work my way around this, you do have to pay attention because it'll cut the label sometimes. So you want to make sure that there's not a sliver of paper. But now I have that just completely come off and it's still gripped together, and I don't have to worry about fishing it out of there. And then there's that thin thing that I was telling you about. And the other cool thing about it is that if I want to, I'm not saying that I have to, but I could always put the lid back on there and be totally fine. So there's that. My pan's hot. I know that because it's smoking and because I'm standing right next to it. But I want to show you something else, a way to know that your pan's ready. All right. I have just got my hand wet with water. I'm going to throw my hand, and you hear that sizzle? And I don't know if you can see it because I know that it pixels, but the water is bouncing around whenever I put it in here. That's how I know it's ready. So now we're going to put in some olive oil. I'm going to just move this right now. I was actually a little heavy on that olive oil. I would say that's probably about 3 tablespoons, maybe 4. Sometimes that happens when you multitask, you know? It's okay though. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cook up these veggies. And this is the onions and both of the peppers and the celery. The garlic's not in here yet because the garlic cooks faster and it'll burn quicker. But I'm gonna cook this until my onions are at least soft. I want them to be mostly clear, but once we put the lid on, they're gonna cook more. So I'm not too worried about them being completely done, but I definitely don't want them raw. So I'm just gonna spread this around here. So something else that you could do, and it would depend on your chicken, on whatever sausage you're using. Mine's already, it's a link, so it's already smoked and cooked. So I'm not worried about it being raw. I'm putting it in here. I'm just warming it up. But if you get a sausage that is raw, I would suggest possibly putting it in here with this because one, it's going to seep into your veggies and it's going to help that cook. and 2, it's all going to cook at the same time, and then you're going to make sure that you're not eating raw meat.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, whether or not it was cooked. I couldn't tell from the package.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
You
so
know,
that's good. That's good to know.
Do what?
I said that's good to know.
Yeah,
that you can use the cooked one.
Yeah, absolutely. It just depends on the timing, because if I put the cooked sausage in here now, it's gonna make it taste rubbery, and it's gonna be just overly done. So I'm really just gonna like put it in with the whenever I do the rice, because then it'll kind of it'll kind of transfer some of that fat and coat the fat on the rice and the veggies, and then it's gonna just make it not buoyant, I think is the word that I'm trying to use. It's just springy.
Yeah.
Good enough. I already prefaced this with I'm not a chef, so this is starting to smell really good. I can really smell my celery, and that to me, because I'm smelling that more than everything else, and me looking at it, I can tell that my celery is chopped smaller than the rest of my vegetables. Sometimes your nose just picks up on things, right? But just like smelling that cue and looking at it, so now I know whenever I'm cooking, I'm gonna watch my pan to see if my celery is burning and everything else is not. Because if that's the case, I'll reduce the heat a little bit. Everything's steaming up really nice. It's looking really good. My onions, I'm going to cook them a little bit longer. I know you can't see through the steam, but I'll bring some up here and show you. So if you see, oh, hot. So if you see, it's still got a bit of a pink color to it. Not pink, white color to it. So I'm just going to try and cook that down just a little bit more. With how hot my pan is and how quick this is cooking, I'm not worried about that. I think it's going to happen really quickly. It is a lot of veggies. I'm interested to see how this is going to distribute out with the two cups of rice that we're going to put in here. I love a good heavy veggie in my well, anything to do with rice pretty much. So we'll see how it goes. I make jambalaya a lot. I've just never made this recipe. It's kind of one of those, let's see what I have in the kitchen, and then I'm going to just throw it all in a pot and then Creole style. So I don't know that I necessarily have a recipe. So I went and found one and kind of adapted it to, well, I do this almost always. All right, this is looking great. I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. And so next, let me see what the recipe says just before I start like going crazy here. Okay, I'm gonna add see, the recipe tells you to cook the sausage until it's browned if it's raw. I'm gonna go ahead and put my sausage in, because I'm about to be putting everything else in too. Mix it around. And by everything else, I mean pretty much everything except for the shrimp. We're not going to forget about our shrimp. This is looking so good, so inviting. It almost, like, there's so much here, it almost makes me think, like, save some of it and then have to feed us later. So you'd always think about something like that, you know, to make a big batch of something, pull it apart, and then boom, you've got dinner started early for tomorrow. Pretty good in a quesadilla too. I'm good here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add in the tomato sauce. I'm gonna dump in my rice. I would dump in my water, but I just planned it out poorly. So I only have the one container. Okay. And the recipe calls for 3 cups of rice. I got a little extra here. So far I've only put in 2, and I tell you what I'm looking for here. I want my seasoning too, because I want to mix my seasoning in. Again, that's oregano, thyme, and I did add in some light Creole seasoning. So I only put in the 2 cups of water and the tomato sauce. And what I'm looking for here is to see how my rice is suspended into that liquid. So when you make rice in general, like if you just make it in a pot, typically you want like a 1/4 inch above the rice to be water, and then that's gonna just, you cover it after it starts to boil, and then you're good to go. This, it's a little harder to tell, but I'm actually gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it as it is. I'm gonna reduce the heat a little bit, and we're gonna cover this up. And then I'm just gonna keep an eye on it because I can always add in more water. But if I, if I put too much water in now, it's just gonna take longer to cook. And I might end up with more of a rubbery sausage too because of that. It's a sweet spot with the balance. So I've got some water on reserve here, and we're just starting to parboil that rice. At this point, are there any questions or any comments regarding anything that I've shown you so far?
No, not yet.
Okay, no problem. Well, I can tell you that part of the reason why I chose this recipe was, one, it sounded really good. But 2, on our calendar, the theme for this month is that we are trying to honor international recipes. And I really liked that we were going to use a jambalaya because it's kind of like a hodgepodge of a bunch of different countries. So we, of course, know it from like Louisiana, New Orleans, as a Cajun seasoning or a Cajun food. But whenever you really look at what Cajun food means and where we see it in other countries, this actually has roots in like South Africa. It has roots in France.
France, yeah.
And there's a third country. And then, of course, America. I'm so sorry, third country I can't think of right now. But rice is a great staple across the world, which is something that I never really knew until I started in on nutrition. I thought that it was primarily an Asian food staple, and man, was I wrong. It's truly a staple across the world, and I'm so thankful to have taken that bias out of my lens because I use it all the time now because I've been exposed to so many more dishes. Let's see here. So I can hear the rice boiling, so I know that the water is still there, I guess is the best way to say it. If I didn't hear the boiling, I might be a little concerned that my rice was starting to burn and that it wasn't cooked all the way, because that would be pretty quick. I am expecting about a 10-minute turnaround here, so I am expecting something quick. But that would just be obscene. So as I'm talking to you, I'm listening to that sound, and if I start to hear the bubbling die down a little bit, that's when I'll open up my pan. I don't want to constantly open up my pan and look and see what's going on in there because I'm losing all that steam. And that steam is so crucial to making sure that you have a good, well-cooked rice. Yeah, which is something that I learned the hard way. I ate a lot of hard rice when I first started cooking it.
Yes, I had that issue where my pan wouldn't seal, and so it wouldn't cook the rice, so that I ended up getting a rice cooker because I was like, "I'm tired of messing up my rice," you
Yeah,
know?
I had a
So
rice cooker for a really long time too. And I obtained it through marriage. My husband had it, but I learned to love it very quickly. What do you mean by you wouldn't seal it?
uh, it would start moving because of the steam, and then so the liquid would start coming out of the top of the lid.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, I think it was not a correct type of lid on that type of pot. I mean, so it would move and then liquid would come out. And so even, I'd sit there, okay, do I hold it down to see if it'll stay? And it would still move. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I now that you tell me about that, I know what you're talking about. I have had pots that have like a little hole cut out in them, and it's almost
Hmm.
like a steam release valve, and those
Right.
work a little bit better, but I still have that issue. And
Yeah.
if I'm being honest, I'm not saying that it's right, but something that I'll do whenever that happens is I crack the lid just a little bit,
Yeah.
so it just steams out, and then it's totally fine.
Yeah. I've had to do that. Yeah. Yeah. Because otherwise it's just a mess too, because it's just coming out all over the place and onto your stove, so.
Yeah, rice is one of those things that it takes a while to perfect. So when I first
Hmm.
started cooking, I would say rice was really hard. Eggs, like making eggs taste good, like especially scrambled eggs, was really hard. And then that was frustrating because you think scrambled eggs are easy, but
Hmm.
then they weren't. Trying to think. I know there was one other thing that was really hard for me to make all the time. But definitely rice was up there.
Hmm.
Okay, I can hear it starting to die down a little bit. I do still hear the water, but I'm going to check on it because I also want to just make sure that my rice isn't cooking to the bottom of it or sticking to the bottom of my pan because it's a little different than if you were just cooking right, just straight up rice. It's looking and it's smelling great. Oh, I forgot my garlic. It's okay, it's not too late. Yeah, but if you look, my it, oh yeah, I don't know why we got such a great setup today. You can see perfectly my pan. So the meat, even though it's cooked, it's already like shrinking up a bit. And my rice is actually seeming pretty tender. I do think that I'm going to go ahead and add some more in there because as I'm moving my spatula through the pan, I can kind of feel the rice separating off of it instead of it just kind of sticking on there, which tells me it's not done. And as you can see, like it's not sticking on my spatula either. And it's not that I want a super sticky rice, but it's just an indication that it's not quite ready yet. So I'm gonna put some water in here. Go get that garlic because if you've cooked with me before, you know if it doesn't have garlic, it's not done. In my opinion, anyhow. Of course, you are privy to your own choices. Now I'm losing all that steam, but it's okay. I can turn my heat back up if I need to. So what I'm gonna do, I think, because of how quickly that rice cooked, I'm gonna cover this up and I'm gonna steam it maybe for like a minute or two, and I'm gonna then throw in my shrimp. And my shrimp's gonna cook really fast because that is hot and it doesn't take a long time to cook. And I love shrimp to have shrimp on hand. This is one of my go-to what I call oh no meals because it can be frozen and be defrosted in like 10 minutes most. You could even throw it in frozen if you want to. I don't care for putting something frozen into something hot and then heating it up. I think it confuses the food texture inside the pot. So I like my shrimp to be room temperature or at least thawed and then put in there. But you can do either one. If you don't care, if you don't notice, then that's fine. But shrimp has a lot of benefits for us. So it's got anti-inflammatory components to it because it's got some of our omega-3s in there, which is great. It's low in saturated fat, but you're still getting great protein source. The oh my goodness, the government. I can't think of the department. The FDA. The FDA recommends that we actually consume 10% or less of our daily fats as saturated fats. So limiting those are better. It doesn't mean that you can't have them at all, but just having less. And saturated fats are kind of easy to tell because they are solid in room temperature for the most part. So those are like our butters. Coconut oil actually is really high in saturated fat. Um, Meats, because they're solid and that's marbled through. They're especially red meat are high in saturated fat. I can hear that water cooking down. I'm gonna go get this shrimp. This shrimp was actually frozen in my freezer 5 minutes before we started doing this meeting. Well, not five, I would say about 10 minutes. It was relatively close to the class. So this is looking so good, and that is so much food. Honestly, I think that those portion sizes are going to be, are probably going to be a whole cup. If you divide that into four, what we put in there, that's more than half a cup, like I said. So, but dividing it into four is the appropriate for the caloric distribution that I had there. So maybe no salad. That looks like it's going to be a lot of food. Maybe eating half of that. So this is only going to take a few more minutes, I would say. Excuse me. Oh. What are some favorite things that you like to cook at home?
Um, some of them have been, I think I've mentioned on these classes, some of the salads um, that y'all have cooked at on the pan classes. Oh, what else? Like the farro salad,
Mm.
the quinoa salad. It's a Mediterranean quinoa salad. I have that pretty much every week because I just love that with the chickpeas and quinoa and all sorts of vegetables, you know. It's a real light salad for lunch. But yeah, I do, you know, like I like to do things like chicken fried rice, you know, mainly chicken. I don't do a lot of beef things, you know, but mainly chicken dishes.
If you don't mind me asking, what is it about the salads that you like so much?
All the different tastes and flavors.
The dimension.
Like like the farro salad has farro in it, but it also has sweet potatoes, a green apple, kale. uh, what other vegetable is there? There's something else. But just, I mean, just those flavors, and then the dressing isn't overpowering, you know. And actually has a fig dressing on the kale.
It sounds delicious.
It is very good. It is so good. It
I,
takes a little longer to make because you're like having to cook the sweet potatoes in a rub and, you know, and do that separately and wait for this and, you know, uh, but it's really good. I really like that salad. So,
you talking about the sweet potatoes actually gave me an idea that I wanted to share, and I actually think I may have mentioned this before. But whenever you have to cut something like a sweet potato, you could actually peel it and dice it up and put it in some water and put it in your fridge. And then whenever you're ready to eat it, you can pull it out and season it how you want. And that can save you some time during the work week.
yes,
Yeah.
that's good. That's a good idea.
I love to make a breakfast a hash with sweet
Mhm.
potato, and that's usually what I'll do. So I'll pull some. I'll because if I'm gonna do is if I'm gonna commit to sweet potato, I'm gonna peel like one or two of them, you know. So then I'll just, that's my form of meal prep basically.
Right. Right.
I can smell this shrimp. I think that we're coming up on ready. Oh my goodness, this looks so good. The shrimp, I'm going to say, is not done yet, and that's just to my liking. I know that my husband would be all over this, but I'll show you why I'm saying it's not done yet. Oh, no, hold on. I'm showing you why. If you look right here in this area, it's still a little opaque. So it's circled up, it's great, but it's not as pink as I want it.
Uh-huh.
And it's still a little clear. So for me, that's not going to do. Our seafood, we want to be able to get that to a temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 45 degrees Fahrenheit. And with that, I just know that if that's opaque, it's not 145. So,
Right.
all right. But I don't think that's going to be much longer at all. And then we can test it out and try it. So,
So did you end up putting the 3 cups of water in, or was it more like 2.5?
it was more like 2.5. I
Oh,
would
okay.
say the 3 cups wouldn't have, it would have been fine, honestly.
Yeah.
But I was cautious.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I did that. I'd say everything has stayed very true to what was on the recipe that I sent out. Um, so yeah, the only thing that I would say is that I know that a lot of people like spice to their jambalaya. So some ways that you can incorporate that I didn't list out is adding hot sauce, but know that adding hot sauce does also add in salt. Could add in a paprika, which is just going to give you just a straight heat, or even like a chili powder. And just go light with a chili powder because usually that's a little bit more bold in the flavor and it can compete against your flavors. But those are quick ways to get that heat without overpowering it for someone like me that has to cook for someone that can't have a lot of spice. Additionally, I did show you earlier, but there's this like Creole seasoning. I also really like Slap Your Mama. This is just what was available, which is why I have it. But this stuff is great too. And I do the light because I can't tell a difference, but it's lower sodium. That's what makes it light. Okay, I am not hearing any liquid. So I'm going to turn off the heat here. Ooh. There is liquid though, so it fooled me. But let's check out our shrimp. Let's see what's going on there. Yes. All right, here's a great difference in what I was showing you earlier. At least I feel so. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
tighter, it's more red. And I mean, it took like almost no extra time at all. And like I can, like all of them are like that. They're tighter, they're more red. It's naturally going to be a little bit more white up here, but it's white. It's not that translucent-ish color that I was showing you earlier. So I think this is ready for being dished up. I also think, just for perspective, I'm going to put a quarter of this on my plate so we can see what a serving size is, and then we can analyze that together. So I'm going to get a pretty big plate here because I have a feeling it's going to be a lot. This is typical dinner plate. Well, actually, I'd say it's even bigger for a dinner plate. All right, let's see here. So whenever I divide things up in my pan, you can't see what I'm doing. Hold on. Okay. Dividing things up in my pan, and I know that I'm going to get a 4th or a 6th. It's a little bit easier with a pie, but with something like a casserole, it gets a little confusing. But I basically treat it like it's a pie. So I'm going to flatten it all out so it's evenly distributed. And then I'm going to basically give myself trace and marks. And I'm going to go here. And I'm going to go here. And now I already know by looking at that, that's a lot. But I'm going to portion it out according to that. And again, the reason why I'm portion these out in 4 is because that's what's on the recipe that I shared at the beginning of our call. And I want us to be able to have a perspective of what a serving size looks like. Because it said 1/2 cup. Okay. That's close enough. I might be like a shrimp short, but I mean, who's holding me that accountable to that? All right, let's see. So it's actually a pretty decent size. It is large. I don't think that I would eat it all, but I could see like my husband comfortably eating this. Let me go ahead and situate you guys so that we can take our first bite, and I will tell you what I think of it without burning my face, hopefully. It does look really good, and it smells rich. I love all the different color that we're getting in here too with the different peppers. And then like the onions earlier, whenever I showed you that they were still a little white, but it'd be fine and they'd be cooked. Here is a representation for that. It's actually on top of that green, but all you can see is the green. That's how well cooked it is. So I'm gonna grab some of this. I'm gonna try and get a bite of everything. I'm gonna grab some sausage. I'm gonna get a shrimp. I'm gonna cool it down. It's really good. That shrimp is cooked perfectly. It like melts in the mouth. It's not too springy. The tomato to it is really good. I do personally feel like it could use some spice, but I love spice. So I would add, I don't know that I would necessarily add I would add hot sauce because I am getting salt in it from the salt that I had and from the sausage. It's a little salty. So it's just the fact that it's not spicy. I would use the paprika. It's good though. It doesn't coat the mouth, but it's very, very light almost. It's interesting. It's really good. I like that it tastes hearty, but it doesn't taste fatty, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I feel like I can go on throughout my day and I'm not gonna like crash after I eat it. So any questions or comments regarding what we have made today?
No. Was the celery good?
Yes, I'm not a big fan of celery, so I just used the one stalk and I diced it up really small.
Really small, yeah.
And I couldn't taste it, so I'm happy about that. And it was thoroughly cooked. It wasn't burnt. It was great. And also my garlic is fine too. So there's no crunchy pieces in there either. So whenever I added it in, it was still an appropriate time. But I'm certain it would have been burnt if we put it in there with the frying of the other vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
So yeah, I definitely suggest trying this. I think it's really a good dish.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to carry
Sounds
a
good.
full dish.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining. I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording, and I hope that you have a great time until our next meeting.
All right, sounds